So we've seen the basics of the WBS work breakdown structure, work breakdown system that allows you to number in a hierarchical way your project tasks. We also saw the drawback to using the default numbering was that adding new tasks, deleting tasks, moving tasks caused that numbering to be automatically updated. So what we now need is a similar system, but one that does not automatically update itself when you amend your tasks, and one that we can control the design of. So we need a custom WBS. So we do that from the project ribbon, WBS, that we see. In the little drop down, we need to define a code. There is a grayed out option for renumbering, which we can't choose yet because we don't have our own code. So we need to define a code. Now in our code, we can add a prefix, so it doesn't need to start with the first set of numbering. It can start with any sequence of characters that you would like. So it's a kitchen, so why don't we prefix with a K? So all my numberings are going to prefix with a K. You can see in the top section here, code preview. Then we need to physically build all the possible levels of our hierarchy. So the first level, we have a drop down of what it can be. It can be numbers, it can be uppercase letters, it can be lowercase letters, or it can be characters, not in any particular order whatsoever. Well, let's go with a numbers. Those numbers can be any length, or can they be a fixed length? So if you, for example, set a fixed length to 3, you can see I get 3 ones. If we go to 9, I get 9 ones. So that's just a preview. Let's leave it at any. I'll just use as many as it needs. Would I like a separator of some kind? And there's a drop list. So a comma, a hyphen, a plus, or a slash. So this is how you're going to define the difference between one level of the hierarchy and the next. Well, I'm going to choose a little hyphen. In the second level, let's go for lowercase letters ordered. Any number of characters, and we need to use the same separator really to keep some kind of consistency. So you can then see in the preview, we're going to have a K, which I put here in the prefix, then the number 1, then hyphen, then A. If there happens to be a third level, then let's choose characters unordered, again, any length, and we'll choose the same separator. So we've now defined 3 levels. Okay, what we haven't got is the ability to see our WBS code yet, so we need to add that in again. So right click any column heading, insert column, and choose WBS from the list. And then I'm going to move it to the beginning. Click, and then click again to move. So you can see our system then gets created. K1, the first phase. Every task within that first phase is then given a letter. If I scroll down to phase 2, that becomes K2. We then saw earlier that our white goods are a subset, so that's K2H. And then we chose a symbol effectively, and it's given me an asterisk. So really there's no numbering, so I can't see any kind of order. So although it seemed like a good choice, it probably wasn't a good choice. So let's do a little bit of redefinition by going to WBS, define the code, and let's change that character unordered into numbers. Okay, and you can see then that makes a little bit more sense. So it's K2H, my white goods, K2H1, K2H2, K2H3, K2H4. So you're in charge of how this WBS works, define code, and you need to define as many levels as you think you will need. All the tasks sit at the top level to start with. As soon as you then start adding project summary tasks and indenting, you'll get a second level. Further indenting causes a third, and further indenting a fourth level, etc. Don't worry about running out of indentations. There's plenty of rows in here to put all those levels in. You then choose a prefix if you want one. The style that you're choosing for each of the particular levels, so numbers ordered, uppercase letters ordered, lowercase letters ordered, or characters unordered, which tends to give you the asterisk character. The length, so if we were to change this length not from any to, let's say, 4, and then OK, what happens is we then end up with leading zeros until the numbers get big enough to allow for it. So if you think you're going to have a lot of tasks or a lot of subtasks, that number of characters can be quite useful for keeping the WBS code the same length all the way through your project. Otherwise, if you just leave it as any, it will only use as many characters as it wants, and K1-A will be shorter than K100-A, but you may wish to keep the codes the same length. It's all an option, all controllable. WBS, define code, make your changes within here. For the length, let's go back to any for mine. The style of the character for that particular level, and then a separator that will make the split between the level you're currently on and, if needed, the subsequent levels. If I say OK, scroll back up, let's look back in our WBS. So between 1 and 2, it's a hyphen. Between 2 and 3, it's a hyphen. But if there aren't any level 3s, you don't just get a spare hyphen doing nothing. OK. And notice that I changed the length back to any, but the numbers didn't rehash themselves. I then need to go to WBS and renumber. To ask it effectively, type project, please. Yes, I'm very, very sure. And then it will redefine the code. So if you make any major changes here in the code and they don't get applied immediately, then you need to click the renumbering option. The idea really behind the renumbering option is if you start to move tasks around. Because now that you've got your own custom WBS, if I now were to add a new task in, say for example, remove kitchen, and go to tasks, insert a new task, please. Notice here I now get K1L, which is the next available letter at that level of the hierarchy, not renumbering the others. So this stayed E, this will become F, that will become G, H, I, J, K, L, etc. Doesn't renumber when you're using a custom system. It takes the next available number, or letter in this case, from the level of the hierarchy that it's required at. So if I were to insert another one here, you see I get I. So it still keeps K2 because that's the level I'm at. Then looks to the last one, which was H, and comes up with an I. So there's no renumbering taking place, which is vitally important if these tasks are being referenced and the WBS code is being used in external documentation. The last thing that you want is if those codes were to get mixed up or changed and then the documentation does not match your project file. If, however, you're at this stage, you're still building things and the documentation isn't fully complete, then you can renumber. So project WBS, renumber, and entire project. Yes, notice how it's asking you quite a few times if you're sure, because it knows how much you're going to mess up the link to the external documentation. And then my new task gets put in the correct place, it becomes a C, and everything else below it then gets relettered. So it's WBS code, define code, decide on your numbering system, whether you're in a prefix, whether you're in a separator between each of the levels, what you want for each level, whether you're having letters or numbers, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and then OK. If you're making a change, there is a chance that having made the change, you would then need to renumber anyway to force those changes to take effect and renumber any of the new tasks or renumber any tasks that have gone because that letter would then be taken away. So that's the WBS code. Excellent and very useful when looking to reference your project to external documentation, because the custom WBS codes do not change unless you explicitly ask Microsoft Project to change them.